It was a cold night. The wind howled outside as Jace finished feeding the chickens. The sky was dark, and only the barn light flickered in the distance. His old dog, Rufus, walked beside him, his big paws making soft sounds on the dirt path. Jace was about to go back into the house when Rufus suddenly stopped. The dog growled low. Jace turned. "What is it, boy?" Rufus stared at the barn. His ears were up and his body stiff. Jace frowned. "A raccoon again?" He picked up his flashlight and walked carefully toward the barn. Rufus followed, his growl getting deeper. When Jace opened the barn door, the warm scent of hay and animals filled the air. The horses were calm, the goats were asleep, but Rufus didn't stop growling. Then they heard it. A soft sound, like a tiny breath, or a quiet sob. Jace slowly walked between the haystacks. He moved the flashlight left and right. Then he saw it, movement behind the last stack of hay near the wall. He moved closer, and what he saw made him freeze. A small figure, curled up tight, shaking, green skin, glowing orange eyes, tiny, thin arms wrapped around her knees. It was a child but not human, an alien girl. She looked up at him, terrified. Her eyes widened when she saw Rufus. She tried to press herself deeper into the hay. Rufus barked once and the girl let out a small cry. "Easy!" Jace shouted and grabbed Rufus's collar. "Stay!" The dog stopped barking but still stared, confused and curious. Jace crouched down. "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you." The girl said nothing. Her eyes didn't blink. She was shaking hard. Jace noticed she was wearing strange clothes, torn, thin fabric that didn't look warm. One of her feet was bare. Her other foot had a broken shoe. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. He reached into his coat and pulled out a protein bar. "Here," he said gently. "Food." The girl didn't move, but her eyes followed his hand. Rufus whimpered softly, sensing her fear. He lay down beside Jace and lowered his head to the ground. The girl looked at the dog, then back at the food. Slowly, with tiny hands, she reached forward. She grabbed the bar and pulled it back fast. She opened it with shaky fingers and took a bite. Then another. She ate it like she hadn't eaten in a week. Jace whispered, "Poor kid." He looked around the barn. She must have snuck in for shelter. But from where and how? This wasn't a planet where aliens just dropped from the sky. Was she running? Was she left behind? Jace stood. "Okay," he said softly. "You stay here tonight. I'll bring you something warm." He walked out with Rufus behind him. Inside the house, he grabbed a thick old blanket, a small pillow, and a bottle of clean water. He poured warm milk in a small cup too. Maybe she'd like that better. When he came back to the barn, she was still hiding, but watching the door now. He placed the items near her without getting too close. "You're safe here," he said. "My name's Jace, that's Rufus." The dog wagged his tail once. The girl looked at them but didn't answer. Jace gave a small smile. "You don't have to talk, just rest." He backed away and left the barn door slightly open so heat could stay in. That night, he lay in bed but couldn't sleep. Who was she? Why was she so afraid of a dog, and what had happened to her? He thought about calling someone. Police, maybe. Or a rescue unit. But something stopped him. The way she looked at Rufus. The way she flinched, like she'd been hurt before. No, she didn't need questions right now. She needed warmth and food and time. The next morning, Jace brought more food, eggs and toast. The girl was still hiding, but she had pulled the blanket over her. Her eyes were tired but not as scared. When Rufus walked in with him, she tensed. But the dog didn't bark. He just sat quietly looking at her. She didn't run this time. She didn't cry. And for a moment, Jace saw something new in her eyes. Not fear, just confusion, like no one had ever shown her kindness before. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't believe it could be real. The morning was quiet. and frost still covered the grass. Jace moved carefully through the barn door, carrying a metal tray. On it sat a warm bowl of soup, a small spoon, 2 slices of buttered bread, and a folded shirt. Rufus followed behind him, tail swaying low, eyes soft. He seemed to understand. This visitor was not a threat. The little alien girl peeked from behind. A hay bale. Her orange eyes blinked at the sight of food, but when she saw Rufus, she shrank back a little, hugging the blanket tighter around her tiny body. Jace knelt down and placed the tray on a wooden crate halfway between them. "I brought this for you," he said softly. "It's not much, but it's warm." Steam rose from the soup. The scent of carrots and herbs filled the air. The girl sniffed, her nose twitching slightly, but she didn't move. Jace reached into his pocket and took out something small, a glowing stone. It was smooth and warm, with shifting colors inside. "You dropped this last night." He gently placed the stone near the tray and stepped back. The girl's eyes widened. She looked at the stone like it was something precious. Slowly, she crawled forward. Every few inches, she glanced nervously at Rufus, who stayed still, lying flat with his tail across his paws. She reached the tray. First, she took the stone and held it close to her chest. Then her fingers touched the bread. She sniffed it, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened. She took another bite. Then she picked up the spoon, her hands clumsy, and dipped it into the soup. Jace watched quietly. He didn't want to scare her by talking too much. He noticed her hands were thin and scarred. Her arms had faint blue bruises. Not fresh, old ones. Faded. Someone had hurt her. Someone had left her. He sat down on a hay bale, not too far, not too close. Rufus let out a slow breath and rolled onto his side, relaxing. His big brown eyes never left the girl. The girl stared at him while she ate. Jace noticed something. Her gaze was no longer filled with fear. It was curious now. She tilted her head slightly. Her small fingers reached toward Rufus, then quickly pulled back. Rufus didn't move. He simply wagged his tail once, then yawned. The girl blinked. Then she slowly pushed the empty soup bowl forward, like she was offering it. Jace smiled. "I'll bring more." Later that day, Jace returned with a clean shirt, small sweatpants, and a soft winter hat. He placed them in a box near her bed of hay. "I don't know your size," he said, "but I figured these are softer than space rags." He paused. "You don't have to talk yet, but do you have a name?" The girl said nothing. She just looked at the clothes, then slowly she took the hat and placed it on her head. It was too big and slipped down over her eyes. She pulled it up just a little and peeked at him. Jace chuckled. "Looks good on you." She didn't smile, but she didn't frown either. That night it was cold again. Jace brought another blanket. He found her already asleep, curled next to the glowing stone and wrapped in his old flannel shirt. Rufus was sitting just outside the stall, watching over her like a silent guard. Jace kneeled and whispered, "You like her, huh?" Rufus looked at him and wagged his tail once. "She's still afraid?" Rufus tilted his head. Then he did something strange. He stepped forward slowly, carefully, and lay down beside her. The girl stirred in her sleep. Her hand reached out, half asleep, and touched his fur. She didn't pull away. Rufus didn't move. They stayed like that, alien and dog, finally resting. In the morning, Jace made breakfast. While cracking eggs into the pan, he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned, surprised. The little alien girl stood in the doorway. She wore the shirt and pants now, the hat still loose on her head. And beside her, Rufus. Her hand rested lightly on his back. She didn't speak, but she stepped forward slowly, holding out the empty soup bowl. Jace took it and smiled. "You're brave." She looked up at him. Then, in a tiny, cracked voice, she said one word. "More?" Jace's heart almost stopped. He nodded quickly. Of course, as much as you want. She sat down by the fireplace with Rufus, and for the first time, she looked like a child again. The fireplace crackled gently inside the small wooden house. Morning light filtered through the dusty window, casting soft orange rays on the floor. The little alien girl sat near the hearth, her knees hugged to her chest, her glowing orange eyes watching the flames. Rufus lay beside her, head resting on her lap. Her tiny fingers moved slowly through his thick fur. Jace stood by the counter, flipping pancakes on an old iron skillet. He glanced at her now and then, amazed at how much had changed in just 2 days. She hadn't spoken again after that first whisper. More, but she no longer looked like she might run at any second, and she stayed close to Rufus, as if the dog's presence calmed her. Jace had seen something else that morning, too. When she pulled up her sleeve to wipe her mouth, he saw it again. Scars, long, thin marks that wrapped around her upper arm like ropes, had once bitten deep into her skin. The sight made his hands freeze. She had been chained. He served the pancakes on a plate and placed it gently in front of her. "Hope you like sweet things," he said. "I put a little syrup." She looked at the food, then up at him. Jace saw something new in her face, hesitation but not fear. She lifted the fork and took a small bite. Then another, and another. She didn't eat like she was starving now. She ate like she trusted the food would come again. That was progress. After breakfast, Jace grabbed a clean towel and gestured to the bathroom. "Want to try a warm bath?" he asked. "It'll feel good, I promise." The girl looked confused. He mimicked splashing water with his hands. "Water. Clean. Good." She blinked, then nodded slowly. Jace smiled. "All right then." He filled the small tub with warm water and left clothes and a soft towel on the side. "Take your time," he said, stepping out to give her privacy. He sat on the porch watching the trees sway. Rufus rested by his feet, snoring. Inside, he heard splashes. Then, silence. Then a small knock on the door. He stood and walked in. She stood there, wrapped in the towel. Wet hair clung to her green cheeks, her arms were trembling. She wasn't cold. She was scared again. Jace crouched slowly. "What is it?" She stepped forward, and then did something that broke his heart. She turned around, pulled the towel down from her back, and showed him the truth. Her back was covered in dark marks. Not just scars. Burns. Deep ones. Symbols he didn't recognize, but they looked like they had been seared into her flesh. Her skin looked damaged, stretched, healed wrong. Jace froze. She looked back at him with wide, tired eyes, then whispered in a voice so low he barely heard it. "Slave." Jace's fists clenched. Who would do that to a child? Who could treat someone so small, so delicate, like an object? He stood and gently wrapped the towel around her again. "Not anymore," he said, voice firm. "Not while you're here." She stared at him. He pointed to himself. "Jace." Then to her. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then softly said, "Tiva." Jace smiled. "Tiva. That's a beautiful name." She looked down and whispered, "You good?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "And I'll keep you safe." Rufus stood behind them, wagging his tail. Tiva looked at him and gave a tiny nod. She trusted them now, not completely, but enough to stay. That night, Jace placed a warm drink in front of her. "You want to tell me what happened?" he asked gently. "Not all of it, just a little?" Tiva stared at the drink, then nodded slowly. She pointed to the sky. "Ship. Bad men. Took many. Me, escape." Jace leaned in, heart pounding. She pointed to her back. Pain, chains, hit. Then she touched her glowing stone, the one she carried when she first arrived. "Mom gave me before they took her." Tears welled up in her big, orange eyes. She wiped them away fast, embarrassed. Jace reached over and placed a hand on hers. "You're safe now, and you're not alone anymore." She looked at him, then at Rufus, who had quietly come and rested his head on her lap again, and, for the first time, Tiva smiled. The next few days passed quietly. Tiva stayed close to the house, never leaving Jace's sight. She liked sitting under the big tree by the fence with Rufus curled beside her. Sometimes she would draw in the dirt using a stick. Strange. Symbols, maybe from her old home. Jace didn't ask too many questions. He wanted her to heal first. She laughed once when Rufus tried to catch a butterfly and ended up in a bush. The sound was small but real. It made Jace pause. That laugh was hope. But peace never lasts long. It was just after sunset. Jace was chopping firewood behind the barn when he heard a sharp buzzing sound in the sky. He looked up. A shadow passed overhead, fast, silent, shaped like a drop of metal. It didn't look like a bird or a ship humans used. Then the buzz turned into a low hum and the strange object circled back and hovered above the trees. Jace's heart sank. Not again. He ran toward the house. Tiva was already inside. She stood by the window, frozen, her orange eyes wide with fear. "They found me," she whispered. Jace didn't ask who. He didn't need to. He grabbed the rifle from above the fireplace, not because he wanted to shoot anyone, but because he might need to scare something off. Rufus growled low. Tiva backed away from the window. "They come to take." "No one's taking you," Jace said firmly. A deep thud echoed outside, like something heavy landing in the woods nearby. Then footsteps, metallic, marching. Jace moved to the door, cracked it open. Figures. 3 of them. Tall. Thin. Not human. Their skin looked like dull silver. Their eyes glowed faint blue. Slavers. Jace had seen pictures and warnings before. Alien bounty hunters who took escaped slaves for money. They carried long rods and scanning gear. One pointed toward the house. "The trace leads here." Jace's hand gripped the doorknob tighter. His voice was low. "Tiva, get to the back room now." She didn't move. "Tiva." She flinched, then obeyed. Jace stepped outside and closed the door behind him. The aliens approached. One of them spoke in a mechanical voice translated through a box on his chest. "You harbor illegal property." Jace's eyes narrowed. "That's a child." "Class 4 mining unit," the alien replied coldly. "Escaped 2 cycles ago. She has a name. She's not yours. You are a human. This matter does not concern your kind. Turn over the unit. You will not be harmed." Jace raised the rifle. "You can try to take her, but you won't get far." The aliens didn't flinch. The lead one lifted his scanner. It beeped rapidly. "She is inside." He moved forward. Rufus leapt from the porch with a savage bark, teeth bared. One of the aliens swung a rod and hit the dog hard. Rufus yelped and hit the ground. Jace's blood boiled. He fired. The bullet struck one of them in the shoulder. Sparks flew. It wasn't enough to drop him, but it made them stop. The lead alien turned. "Violence was not required. You have made a mistake." Before Jace could reload, the alien raised his own weapon. A sharp blue pulse fired, hitting Jace square in the chest. He collapsed to the ground, twitching. Inside, Tiva heard the shot. "No," she whispered. She grabbed her stone and held it tight. It flickered dimly. She looked at Rufus, struggling to rise. Then she looked at Jace, still unmoving. Tears fell down her face. "No more running," she said softly. She stepped out the door. The aliens turned. One of them raised the rod. But Tiva raised her hand first. The stone in her palm flashed, not dim, bright, blinding. A wave of force rippled from the glowing crystal. The nearest alien was thrown back into a tree. The others staggered. Tiva stepped forward. Her small voice was filled with something ancient, something powerful. "I am not yours." The stone pulsed again. The second alien dropped his weapon and turned to flee. The last one, bleeding sparks from where Jace had shot him, looked up in shock. "You are not slave." "No," she said. "I'm free," Rufus barked. Jace groaned. Tiva ran to him, kneeling beside his body. "You okay?" she cried. Jace coughed. "I've had better evenings." She laughed through her tears. Rufus licked his face. The aliens were gone, and Tiva was still there, stronger than before. The wind was cold, but the fire inside Jace's small home crackled warmly. Rufus lay curled near the hearth, his tail twitching in sleep. Jace sat on the couch with a thick bandage wrapped around his chest, groaning as he leaned forward. Tiva sat beside him, holding a mug of warm tea in both hands. Her fingers were still trembling, not from cold but from everything that had happened. "They were going to take you," Jace said softly. "And I couldn't stop them. Not really." Tiva shook her head. "You tried. You didn't run." Jace smiled faintly. "Neither did you." She looked down at the glowing stone hanging from her neck. It had protected her. It had thrown the slavers back like a blast of thunder. And somehow, it listened to her. That wasn't just a lucky stone. Jace tilted his head. "What is that thing? You called it a gift from your mom?" Tiva nodded slowly. Her voice was low and filled with something old. "It's the heart shard. It belongs to my family. Long ago, it meant I was next in line. But then the war came. They killed my father, took the rest, and sold me." Jace's eyes widened. "Wait, are you saying I'm not just a runaway?" Tiva whispered. "I'm a royal heir." Silence filled the room. Only the fire made noise. Jace tried to sit up straighter. "So you're a princess?" She shrugged. "Maybe. That word doesn't mean much now." "It means something to me," he said. "And probably to whoever's still out there looking for you." She shook her head. "They don't want me alive. The ones who sent the hunters, they fear me. The shard only works for those with royal blood. If I'm alive, I'm a threat." Jace frowned. "Then that means they'll be back." Tiva looked at him. Her voice dropped again. "Then we run." The next morning, the forest was quiet, but tension hung in the air. Tiva was packing a small bag with food and supplies. She moved quickly but carefully, looking over her shoulder. Every few seconds, Jace stood by the barn, checking the old truck's engine. He didn't like running, but she was right. They couldn't wait for another visit. Next time there might be more than 3 hunters. He heard light footsteps behind him. Tiva stood there, wrapped in his old jacket. "I don't want to leave you," she said. Jace blinked. "I'm coming with you." She stared at him. "But it's not your fight. You're my guest," he said. "And more than that, you're a kid who saved my life. I'm not letting you do this alone." Tiva looked at him for a long time, then nodded. "Okay, then we leave tonight." That evening, they shared one last meal near the fireplace. The sun dipped behind the trees. Shadows stretched across the wooden floor. Tiva sat quietly, arms wrapped around her knees. She looked different now. Still small, still scared sometimes, but not weak. There was fire in her now. Purpose. Jace leaned back in his chair. "Do you think there are others like you? Survivors from your family?" "I don't know," she said. "But if there are, I have to find them." Rufus nudged her hand. She smiled and gave him the last piece of bread from her plate. When they stepped outside, stars filled the sky like silver dust. The truck's engine rumbled softly. Jace loaded the last bag into the back while Tiva climbed in beside Rufus. Suddenly the stone around her neck glowed again. A soft hum filled the air. "What is it?" Jace asked, stepping closer. Tiva's eyes widened. "They're near. More hunters?" "No," she said. "Something bigger." The trees behind them rustled without wind. Jace raised his flashlight, and what they saw froze them in place. A shape, tall, cloaked, and glowing faint purple, stepped into the clearing. Its face was hidden, but its posture wasn't aggressive. Tiva held her stone tight. The figure spoke in a calm, almost sad voice. Princess Tiva, you are not alone. The tall figure stood at the edge of the clearing, half in shadows, half glowing from the stone on Tiva's chest. It didn't move. Didn't speak again. Jace reached slowly for his rifle. Tiva raised her hand. Wait, the figure stepped forward. The glow around it pulsed in rhythm with her stone. Jace's grip tightened. Then the figure dropped to one knee. Head bowed. I serve you, princess. Silence. Jace looked from the figure to Tiva. Her mouth parted slightly. Who are you? The figure slowly removed its hood. A face appeared, aged, wrinkled, but kind. The skin was gray-blue, with eyes that matched Tiva's glowing orange. I am Ryal, he said softly. I was your father's shield-bearer. When the palace fell, I thought you were lost, but now I see the fire survived. Tiva stepped closer, unsure. You know my father? I swore my life to protect his bloodline. I failed when they came, but now... He raised his hand and showed a deep burn scar shaped like the same symbol Tiva sometimes drew in the dirt. I still bear his crest. Jace finally lowered the rifle. Tiva asked the question in her heart. Why did you come now? I followed the stone's call. The heart shard only sings when royalty wears it freely, without chains, and tonight it cried across the stars. They led Ryal into the house. Inside he sat carefully, like someone who hadn't rested in days. His eyes studied everything, especially Tiva, not as a stranger, but as a leader. There is a movement, Ryal explained. Scattered rebels across systems, all waiting for the sign that the royal line lives. They never knew if it did. Why didn't you tell them? Tiva asked. Because I wasn't sure either. I saw a child taken, but I didn't know if she survived. His eyes lowered. Until now. Jace leaned on the table, still processing everything. So what happens next? Ryal looked at him. The princess must come with me. There are others, waiting to kneel, to fight back. The slavers, the overlords, the ones who burned her world, they fear her return. Tiva glanced at Jace. Her hands tightened into fists. I don't want to be their queen, she said. I just want to be safe. Ryal bowed his head. You do not have to choose today. But understand this, as long as you wear that shard, you are a threat to them. They will hunt you. Or kneel. Later that night, Jace and Tiva sat outside under the stars. The truck sat ready, but no one spoke of leaving. Tiva looked up. I thought I was just a lost slave, but now they say I'm a queen. You're still you, Jace said. Whatever you decide to be. She turned to him. Would you come with me? If I chose to fight? Jace blinked. You'd want a farm guy in a war? I'd want you, she said simply. You didn't care who I was. You gave me food, a bed, your coat. Jace smiled. Then yeah, I'd go. Rufus barked once like he agreed. Inside, Ryal prepared a communication beacon. The message will reach the outposts by morning, he said. If you are ready. Tiva stepped forward. Her hand hovered above the trigger. Will they believe me? They will believe the shard and your voice. Jace walked to her side. And if they don't, we'll make them. Tiva looked at the blinking light, then pressed the beacon. This is Tiva, she said, her voice trembling but clear. Daughter of the last line. I survived, and I am not hiding anymore. Far above the planet, satellites caught the signal. On distant worlds, rebels paused in silence. And somewhere, deep in enemy space, alarms began to ring. She was alive, and she had spoken. The sun rose slowly over the forest. Birds sang softly. The wind moved gently through the trees. But in Jace's old farmhouse, something had changed. Tiva was not the same girl who once hid from shadows. She stood taller now. Her eyes no longer held only fear. They held purpose, and the galaxy had heard her voice. Ryal paced near the window, checking the sky often. The signal went through, he said. We received 4 replies last night. Small rebel cells. They want to meet, but... He paused. They weren't the only ones who heard. Jace looked up from the kitchen table. More trouble? Worse, Rael said. An elite retrieval squad is coming, the kind that leaves nothing behind. Tiva stayed quiet. She reached down and scratched Rufus behind the ear. The dog wagged his tail but didn't leave her side. They didn't have much time. Jace checked the truck, the rifle, packed more supplies, but they all knew. This wasn't a fight they could win alone. They'll track the shard, Rael said. As long as she wears it, they'll keep coming. I won't take it off, Tiva said firmly. Not again. Jace glanced at her. We don't need to fight them here. We find the rebels. We build something bigger than them. Rael nodded. There's a landing point in the northern canyons. If we move fast, we can reach it by nightfall. As they loaded the truck, Tiva stood at the porch and looked back at the house. She whispered something too soft to hear. Maybe a thank you, maybe a goodbye. Then she climbed in. The engine roared to life, and they drove into the rising light. The road was rough, winding through hills and trees. Birds flew overhead. Shadows moved in the forest. For a while it almost felt peaceful, until the sky cracked open. A sleek black ship broke through the clouds, silent and fast. It's them, Rael said. The truck bounced as Jace pushed the gas, harder. The ship followed above, scanning. We won't outrun them, Rael shouted. I know, Jace yelled back. Tiva didn't panic. She rolled down the window and reached out her hand. The shard around her neck pulsed again. A beam shot from the ship, but struck an invisible shield just above the truck. Rael's jaw dropped. You activated a defense field? Tiva blinked. I didn't know I could. They turned off the main road into rocky paths and over shallow streams. The ship tried to follow, but the trees got thicker. Finally it pulled back, circling high above. They were close. By sunset, they reached the northern canyon. And waiting, near the cliff's edge, were ships, not enemy ones. 3 battered transports with strange symbols painted on their sides. Rebel forces. Dozens of aliens stood in silence as the truck rolled to a stop. Jace turned to Tiva. This is it. She opened the door and stepped out. The wind lifted her long hair. The shard on her chest glowed brightly. One by one, the rebels dropped to one knee. Rael stepped forward and bowed. Princess Tiva, the last of the true line, welcome home. Looked at them. Some strong, some thin, many scarred, but all of them waiting. She took a breath. I'm not just here to be a queen, she said. I'm here to stand with you, to take back what we lost. Cheers echoed through the canyon. Tiva turned to Jace. He stood beside the truck, hands in his pockets. You sure you want to do this? She asked. He smiled. I'm just a farmer. She stepped closer. Maybe, but you're my farmer. That night, under the stars, they stood together by the fire. Jace, the human who had opened his door. Tiva, the girl who had once been sold for nothing, now followed by hundreds. The queen who didn't ask for power but had earned it anyway, and by her side, a farmer who gave her something no one else ever had. A reason to believe.